Thanks for coming back. We're going to have a look at some stretching today. There's nothing particularly difficult, I think, in the stretches we're going to do today. But at the end I will talk a bit about how you should be trying to feel in the stretches, which is more than just being in the positions and pushing them for a while. So stick around for that. Okay, so I would normally, in an hour's class, I would normally spend about 15 minutes at the end stretching. I'm just going to show you the stretches today rather than spend all that time doing it with you and counting them with you. But you can use this information to add the stretches on to the end of your session. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is a calf stretch. So for that you'll need to stand, and you might not be able to see my head, but you'll be able to hear me. Okay. I'm going to start with my feet parallel, and then I'm going to step back with one foot, and I've got my heel flat on the floor and I've still got my feet parallel, and I bend my front leg so that I'm stretching my calf here. Okay, so that's the first calf stretch. I've got my back leg straight. The second one, I step my back leg in and then I let both legs bend, and I've still got my feet parallel. The tendency is for this foot to skew out like that, so you've got to keep it facing the same way as the front foot, and then bending down as much as you can. You'll find you're trying to get this knee down to the floor. You'll find it won't go there, and you probably won't feel too much of a stretch, but the muscle that's being stretched is stopping you from getting the knee to the floor, so it is working. Okay, so they're the two calf stretches, and obviously you would do them on the other side as well. Now I'm going to go on to a hamstring stretch. Now there are several different ways of doing the hamstring stretch. This one I particularly like because it isolates just your hamstring, so the back of your thigh there. So I start in the semi-supine position, which I showed you the other day, and then I bring one knee up, and then with my hands I hug that knee right into my chest. And then what I do is I work my hands down my leg there, and holding this knee in at my chest, I don't let it move away, and then start to open up the knee joint. Now you might only get to there, or you might be able to grab your foot. It doesn't matter. What matters is don't let this knee move away from your chest as you open up this knee joint. So there we are in the stretch. I might stay here for a bit, and then I might try and go a little bit further. You might get much further than me, you might get less far than me. Everybody's bodies are different. So that's the hamstring stretch, and when you're done, let the knee bend, and then put the foot back down, and then you can do the other side. So that's a hamstring stretch. Okay, so here we go for a hip flexor stretch. I'll start kneeling, and then I'll bring one leg up, and I'm trying to have my thigh at 90 degrees and my lower leg there at 90 degrees to the floor. I'm trying to keep both my hips pointing forwards, and I'm trying not to hitch up my hips too much. So I'm using my right leg here, so the tendency is for my right hip to hitch up, but I don't let it. I keep it down towards the ground. So my hips are level, and if I had a wall in front of me, they'd be square with the wall in front of me as well. And then what I do is I pull my tummy in and I push my pubic bone. Now remember, your pubic bone is at the bottom of your pelvis here. I push that forwards, and then I'll feel the stretch down here. That is my hip flexor. You have to tilt the pelvis that way to bring that stretch on. And then of course you do the other side, so you've done both hip flexors. We'll now move on to a glute stretch. So your glutes are in your bum. Lie down in that semi-supine position. Now you've got to do both sides, but I'll just do one side. So I take my right leg and I put my right ankle on my left knee, and I let this right knee hang out to the side. And then I come forwards and I grab my left thigh with both hands and I pull towards my head. And there I have the stretch in my glute. And when I'm done, I can just let go of the thigh and let that foot come back down, and then I can switch sides and do the other side. Next one is chalk circles. This is a lovely loosening up for your shoulders. So lie on my side with my arms straight out in front of me. And I've got my knees bent, and I'm trying to have my heels and my bum and my shoulders in line there. I can use the edge of the mat to do that. And then from here, I take my top hand, I keep my fingers on the floor, and I start working them up. I start working my hand up in a circle. Now as I go round, I have to keep my knees together and I have to keep my underneath knee on the floor. I can let my shoulders roll, I can let my head roll so long as my knees stay where they're supposed to. My hand is staying on the ground all the way round. And you might find there's a tricky bit around here where I am about now, and you have to flip your hand over at some point. It still stays on the floor. You work your way all the way round till you get to your hip, and you hop over your hip. You do the last bit there. So as I said, there's normally a tricky bit somewhere over here, and the way to get past this bit is to do it slower and don't push at it. You've got to relax to get there. You have to be able to let go, not push harder, to manage to stay on the ground all the way there. And as with lots of things in Pilates, if you find a difficult bit, that's the bit where you'll get the most benefit and you should spend the most time. So slow it down at that point. So I would do 4 chalk circles on one side and then 4 chalk circles on the other side. And I find chalk circles is a really nice one to finish with because it's relaxing rather than pushing. So it's a really nice one to finish a session with. Hi, I wanted to talk about stretches in general and a couple of points I wanted to make. So I've just shown how to do all the stretches, but for each one, and I mean each one on each side, where sides are applicable, you really want to be spending about a minute minimum on each one to get some benefit from it. But also you want to be thinking about how the muscle actually feels when you're in that stretch. So let me give you a bit more detail on that. When I'm relaxed, my muscle is soft, so I can literally, if I push it with my finger, I can squidge it about. But if I'm doing something with it, if I'm tensing it up, it feels hard to my finger. And obviously yours are the same. When you stretch a muscle, you'll feel it tighten up. And while you're holding that stretch position, you need to be trying inside your head to soften that muscle, to deliberately make it go soft. Well, that's not easy, and you need to learn to do it, mostly by continuing to try. I know that's frustrating, but it is very worthwhile. So you can try some stretches where you can poke the muscle and maybe ease off the stretch a bit so you can get it to relax, and then gradually bring it back on and poke the muscle as you're stretching to see if you can manage to keep it loose. And gradually your brain will learn how you deliberately soften a muscle. And it's still hard to do that, but it is possible, and you'll get a lot more benefit from the stretches themselves. So I'll try and give you a demo of that. I'm going to go into the hamstring stretch, which I showed you before. I'm going to show you what I'm thinking about, where I'm pushing with my hands and so on. Okay, so as you saw before, I bring my knee up and then I hold my knee. I've got the sun right in my eyes. So I'm holding my knee in at my chest and I'm opening up that leg joint by pulling with my arms. Now it's this part, to the other hand, it's this part of my leg that's being stretched here. This is my hamstring. And because it's being stretched, it's tensed up. So it's gone hard, like I can feel that it's hard when I push it with my finger. If I ease off a bit, it goes a bit squishy. I can actually push my finger in there, and as I pull the stretch on, it gets hard again. So if I go back to the squishy bit there, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to push my fingers in there as I bring the stretch on. I can just feel it start to tighten up there, so I'm going to try and ease off a bit, and then inside my brain I'm thinking about keeping that muscle soft as I then increase the stretch. And you'll feel it switch on again. So what I'm trying to do is teach my brain, how do I keep the muscle soft? Now, although that's an easy one for you to feel, oh, it's got hard there, it's quite difficult to achieve softening the muscle there. So now that you understand what I'm talking about, I'm going to go on to this one here. I think I'm just going to move the mat slightly because I want to make sure that I'm in shot. So, I'm lying on my side. I've got this arm out reaching towards you. I can push into my pectoral muscle, which is just above my nipple there. And at the moment, it's soft and I can push my fingers into it. If I then lift up my arm, it tenses up, it gets hard there. So it is possible to lift this arm without that muscle tensing up. You use the muscles in your rotator cuff. So what I do is I keep my fingers pushed into this muscle here, and I try to lift with my arm, and each time I feel these muscles tense up, I just back off a little bit and then come up again, and I'm trying really hard in my brain to keep these muscles soft as I lift. Now I've done this quite a few times before, so I can do that. You will find this really hard. As soon as you try and lift your arm, this muscle will tense up. Now, and what I'm not trying to do here is teach you a different way of lifting your arm, because sure, this muscle is good for lifting your arm, so use it. But I'm trying to teach you how to learn how to keep a muscle soft. It's a skill to learn. It'll take some practice and some repetition. This is a good way to try. If you find it doesn't switch on at all, then that's not going to work for you. So try putting something heavy in your hand, like a can of beans, in your hand, and try and do it again, and you'll feel this muscle go tight to switch on, and then you can learn how to switch it off. And it's the same feeling, the same softening of your muscles in every single muscle you try to relax. Try to get it soft and squishy. I hope that's helpful for you.